All right, let's do it.
So we're joined all the way from Oakland, California by my man, Mr. Build Wealth, Jasper Smith. We thank you so much for joining us again. We got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. It's our personal finance class, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Option Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you once again for joining us from all the way out in the San Francisco Bay.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here once again.
Yeah, and we got a lot of cool things to talk about that these kids really need to know about as they start
Huh?
moving through high school. But just give us a little background because you're a graduate of the largest HBCU in the country, North Carolina A&T. So just to give us a little bit about your educational background and how you've gotten all the way out to California.
Yeah, so did 4 incredible years at North Carolina A&T, the greatest college in the world, and business major, baseball minor. I played baseball all 4 years, and I knew I wasn't going pro, so I was doing internships during the summers instead of playing ball. So I was probably the writing was on the wall that I was going to go, get a job and got into financial services right out of college. So I moved to Philadelphia for my first job out of college, and that was a rotational program. So I did a year in Philadelphia, and then my second rotation is actually what got me to California. So
Wow.
got to California. It was 2008. Knew the layoff was coming, and I stayed out here. So that was 16 years ago. So
Wow.
here I am. Here I am, still
That,
here. Mhm.
that's incredible. Now I know, and you can see it on your background there about you've really had the call in the last several years to disrupt generational poverty.
Yeah.
So, talk about a little bit about what that is and why that has been such a problem in underserved communities.
Yeah, for me, it's understanding that like poverty is a mindset, and that mindset and that way of thinking plagues families generation after generation. And I just kept like experiencing it in just my everyday life, like talking to clients, talking to prospective clients, talking to groups, and you just kind of hear the kind of same stuff over and over, and you're like, that may be why the family's in this situation year after year after year, and nothing ever improves. And so, like being a financial planner, it was always like there's a why behind all this stuff. And so for me, it was how do I do my best to educate people about all the different things that you need to do. And you can't do them all in one day. But for those who are able to slowly kind of check some of those things off their list, you know, poverty ends up not being an issue for some generation. Maybe it's not yours. And so I've had to get, comfortable being uncomfortable in these conversations and saying, look, it might not be your generation, but what will you do to set up the next one? And that's how you avoid having that next generation who has the same exact financial struggles as you might be currently facing.
Yeah, and one thing I've said, and I was even interviewed about this, and I talked about this about the lack of access in rural communities was very real until not that long ago. So our kids' grandparents and maybe even their
Yeah.
parents were not able to get this educated in these types of of concepts. So the lack of education and access was there for many years, but times have changed. Technology has changed. There's never been a better time to start changing the narrative about everybody's community.
Yeah. And the question for most people is it going to be you or are you going to allow somebody else to dictate what happens to your family? And that's a tough kind of pill to swallow for a lot of people there's some work that's required. There's some time you're going to need to be vulnerable and ask for help. And so a lot of these underserved communities are looking for help and there is some relief, but it's usually not enough.
Yeah, and one thing I know that you deal with a lot, and there's a few things you deal with, but one thing I like talking about, just because I think there's such a misconception about it, is you are a certified retirement planner, and and you even say in one of your videos about how I'm not thinking about retirement. I'm 18 years old. I'm in high school. But then you see the memes on Instagram that say they should lower the retirement age to 35. But I'm like, retirement has nothing to do with an age. It has to do with money. I'm not even a financial expert and I know this. So even simple things that these kids can start doing now because we have some that want to go to college, we have some that don't. Whatever they decide, we're going to support them. but it's important that they understand the decisions that need to be made because a lot of companies, especially state jobs and some of these large corporations, they're going to offer great retirement vehicles for you. And a lot of young people get so obsessed with having a big paycheck that they don't even do that retirement contribution when you can put up and look, and I even say this, and I don't even know what I'm talking about most of the time, that if you don't put the maximum that a company will match, you are absolutely outside of your mind when it comes to saving for retirement.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, the company match is one piece. You said another key thing, just knowing that you have or are offered the benefit as, as an employee. And somebody literally asked me this last week was when should you start, investing for retirement? And I'm gonna say investing for retirement because the industry says save. You don't save your way to wealth. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
across
true.
the board. Everybody says save for it. Are you saving for retirement? No, I'm saving for an emergency. I'm investing for my retirement because I need to be investing for that because I need a lot of money, to your point. But the question last week I got was when should you start? And I was like, your very first internship, you should be putting something away for retirement. And if your employer doesn't offer that benefit, well, you can go open one up yourself. There are individual accounts that you can do, but nobody tells our young people that you should start that bucket. You don't need to do a lot starting out if you're a teenager, but if you have earned income, meaning you have a job, then yes, you should enjoy that paycheck. You should save a little bit. You should invest a little bit, and you should put some away for retirement. And if all our young people did those three things with their first job, I think the world will look a lot different. And maybe we're not disrupting generational poverty. Maybe we're focused on something else. But nobody's telling our kids that. Like nobody's telling them that.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is when you have that money put aside or when you have that money taken out of your paycheck, you don't miss it.
Nope.
Because you learn to live within those means. Because I
Right.
also, and I'm acting like I'm an expert. I'm not, but I even have what's called deferred compensation taken out every week or every month. So that's money I'll also see later, and I haven't even noticed it wasn't there. So
Yep.
learning how to do small things like that, and yeah, it's not a whole lot of money, but once you keep putting it in every month and it accrues interest over several years, it's amazing how much you'll have there and you not even realize.
Yeah, and the person who starts early, and there are plenty of charts that your students can find on the internet. It's called the cost of waiting, and it'll show these diagrams of if you started when you were 20, doing X amount of dollars at this rate versus waiting 5 or 10 years. The person that waits, you can never catch up unless you're putting in substantially like large amounts of money. So you having this, let's say, 10-year head start, you can still do your small amount, but you've been doing it for so long that compounding effect will still keep you in front of the race if there's a race being had. So I start early, I stay consistent and stay disciplined. It works out in your favor if you just stick to it.
Yeah, and even my grandparents, and I'm sure your grandparents too. There was a time when you could just depend on Social Security in our country,
Yeah.
but those days are long gone for a variety of reasons, and we won't go down that rabbit hole right now. But that's not something that I think anybody really needs to depend on. Yeah, when you turn 65, you're entitled to it, and I hope everybody makes the most of that benefit. But it's not going to be enough to sustain a lifestyle that you're used to.
Yeah, and they've even pushed it's 67 now. So 67 is full retirement age. You can take the benefit at 62. And so there are pros and cons to do I take it early? Do I wait? And so to your point, it's still not enough for most people, no matter where you are in the country. So it's the responsibility falls on your shoulders to do more for yourself. And then whatever the government's going to give you, that's just, some sprinkles on top of that Sunday.
Yeah. Now, I know something else you deal with is insurance, and I think that's something else that a lot of communities and a lot of kids aren't educated about. I mean, we always hear about the car insurance, but there's other insurances that are extremely important. And something a trend I've seen online on social media the last couple of years is hashtag no more GoFundMe funerals. And it's sad. It's sad enough when there's a tragic loss when a community loses someone in an untimely sudden death. But it's even more of a tragedy when the community has to take on the financial burden to help to help fulfill
Yeah.
that person's last wishes and give them a proper burial. So, what are some other things you've seen as that goes? Because a lot of people don't understand that life insurance makes a huge difference, and it's really not expensive.
Yeah, it's really matters having the conversation, which nobody wants to have until after the death. So it's after things happen that people want to have that conversation about, I'll call it protection. There's a lot of different types of insurances out there, but car insurance people are aware of because you have to have it by law. Like homeowners insurance, you have to have it to get the house. So because there's a requirement to have it, people do. There's no requirement to have life insurance. There's no requirement to have disability insurance. There's no requirement to have long-term care insurance. And there's other insurances that you're not necessarily required to have it. I think renters insurance, for anybody who just may be living on their own already or considering that path, like renters insurance is affordable. So it's just this lack of education around what the tool, and I always call it, what can this tool do for you? And if you learned more about it and it made sense and you could afford it, it's worth you considering, especially on the life insurance front. The younger you are, the more inexpensive it is. And generally, the younger you are, the healthier you are, which also is a big factor. So, looking at those two factors of age and your health, getting older is going to cost you. You get older, you typically don't get more healthier. Again, there's always exceptions to the rules. But again, who's telling our kids, hey, look, if you do this stuff now, just know your older self will be thanking you tremendously.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned disability insurance and long-term care insurance. My best friend, uh, 14 years ago, at 28 years old, dropped of a stroke. They
Mhm.
still don't know what caused it. He is amazingly made a full recovery and lives a great life now. But if he had not had long-term disability insurance or short-term disability insurance, he would have been paying even more money for the care than he already did. He had to be airlifted to Vanderbilt Hospital. He had to spend months in rehab, so he wasn't able to work. And like I said, thankfully he did make a full recovery, but that is something real that could happen to anybody because he was in great shape. So things like that, we're not trying to scare people, but that's a reality of financial burdens that happen to people every year that cause people to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah, yeah. But even those instances sometimes don't get people to change their ways. So like life altering events, generally you would think this person's going to just lead a totally different life, but normally what happens is it's like once that shock value kind of wears off, you go back to what you're comfortable and used to doing, which may or may not be in your best interest from a financial standpoint. So I always hope that I can be proactive and do things ahead of time and not have these things happen. And then my life is in shambles versus if I have a strategy or a plan of some degree, right? The plan will never be complete until we go off to glory, but I need to be working on my plan consistently. And so then when life happens, it's like, that's unfortunate, but we were prepared or prepared as we could be to handle that issue.
Yeah. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is especially these kids that are going to college, but even the
Mhm.
ones that aren't. When you turn 18, the amount of bombardment you get to get credit cards is
Yeah.
should be illegal. I've never seen anything like it in my life. They're on college campuses. I can't even go to a dang New Orleans Pelicans or Memphis Grizzlies game without seeing people trying to give away free shirts if you sign up for a credit card. I can't go to Academy Sports without getting offered a store credit card. So that is a very real trap that a lot of people fall into. So, especially these young people that don't understand what they're getting into, what do they need to know about these credit card offers? Because I always say, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, credit is just a game, and you have to learn the rules. And they're not telling you the rules when you sign up for the card. That's the play. So credit is not a bad thing, but some people believe it is. And again, there's a lot of people who are in underserved rural communities who've only heard that credit is bad. So we live in cash, we do it. No, no, no. Credit is a good thing when you understand how to manage it. And it's really a matter of you being able to pay for some item and paying the money back. So you're delaying the payment. That's it. At its core, use somebody else's money, make a payment to buy something. You pay that person back who you borrow from. That's it. So all the swag that they attract you, all the swag, all of it, right? It's okay. That's great. We got you in, but then even if you take all the swag, you should come in thinking, okay, let me make one small purchase, pay it off. That's how I built my credit. My mom was like, look, they're going to give you all the offers. It looks great. but that's not your money. And that's what a lot of the kids and younger people, or just people who are new to the credit system, they don't realize it's not your money. You have to pay that back. So don't be shocked when you get that bill. It's no, you spent the money, but you got to pay it back. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interest rates, especially on first time credit card users, can be astronomical.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what eats people up, right? You spent $100, but now you owe 300, and the additional money is all interest on what you originally borrowed. So you spent 100 and you paid back three. Sounds like you got the raw end of the deal.
Big time. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, and we've alluded to this a little bit, but we've talked about homeownership and we talked about cars and things of that nature. But it
Mhm.
literally, you cannot have those things without having a bank account. And a lot of our kids are, they see the fads and the apps. Having a Cash App card is not having a bank account.
Agreed.
I use Cash App. I mean, it definitely has its place. It's convenient. I use it to pay people I know. But that's it. My paycheck every month is not going into a Cash App account, or Venmo or any of these other things people are using. And yeah, they're convenient and they're fun, but that's not the financial instrument that young people need to be using.
Yeah, and the thing that they also don't realize is that there's no protection from a security standpoint. So when money gets missing, there's no FDIC or NCUA, and those are insurances put in place by the government, right, to ensure that if things happen to your bank or credit union, you have some level of protection up to certain limits. But our young people don't know that, and so again, you're using the convenient app, not realizing if something goes wrong, like it's hard for you to even talk to a person because most of this is AI bots you have to talk to, or automated numbers. So it's that's what they don't get. It's all good when the money's flowing and you don't have any issues, but as soon as an issue comes up or presents itself, then you'll see like the difference between, okay, this is a pseudo bank. This is an organization acting like a bank, but they're not a bank or a credit union, or they're not a credit union. They're not.
Yeah, and it's so important to understand that it's important to build a relationship with a bank or a credit union because when you want to get that loan, you're a lot more likely to get it when you've shown that you can do business at a bank. When you want to buy a home, we have so many kids that say they want to own a home. Those banks are going to want to see bank statements. They're not going to want to see Cash App statements. So getting into that now, and again, we have some great banks here in Mississippi that have great student checking. As soon as they get a job, 15, 16 years old, these banks will work with them knowing that they're a student and can really make it very dummy proof when it comes to establishing a bank relationship.
Yeah, and they're favorable for younger people. So you have a different fee structure depending on what types of accounts they offer. Again, free or reduced fees on a lot of their service offerings. So to your point, the earlier you get in, they value that loyalty also. So you may not have all the money they would like, but that loyalty goes very far. Again, when you are going for a loan or when you are asking for additional services from that institution, well, hey, well, Greg's been working with us since he was 12 or 13. Like, yeah, let's make sure we keep him so we can have what they call a lifelong customer. And normally, the first bank or credit union that you work with, you generally keep that account in place for the rest of your life, generally speaking. They love that relationship. That's sticky. That they like that from a business standpoint.
Big time. Now, before I get to the students' questions, well, one thing I always like to ask is that, you know, I have some kids in here with me now, and then a lot of kids will see this later. And what I
Mhm.
always run into, and I tell you, I have lost count. I've been teaching 12 years now. I've lost count of the amount of kids that have come back and said, "Man, I wish I'd have paid attention when you were talking about this." And and we laugh about it, and it is funny, but at the same time, it's because we're so caught up in this TikTok world and the Snapchat world that we don't see that none of that matters when it comes to being financially sound, or even just knowing the basics. I mean, everybody's not going to be a financial expert, but knowing the basics of how things work. So why is it so important? Because they love to say, "Oh, this stuff's not important. I don't care about this." But yeah, you're just 15 years old now, but you're not going to be 15 forever. So why is it so important to learn these types of things now as they transition out of high school?
It's important so you won't be broke. How about that? Let's just keep it. If you want to be broke and just live a miserable, mediocre life, don't learn anything about financial literacy. Like just avoid it. Just avoid it. follow people on the internet who don't know anything about you. Like if you just want to be broke, and Greg, I have never had anybody say, I want to grow up and struggle. I want to grow up and be broke. I want to grow up and live check to check. Like I will never hear that. So it serves you well to learn this, like you said, this foundational information and apply it to your life because I know you don't want to struggle. I know your families don't like to struggle. So what's it worth to you to go down this path and learn, like you said, learn the basics, build the foundation. Because again, nobody has ever said and ever will say, man, I would love to struggle and be broke one day in my future.
Oh, big time. Well, I do have some questions, and these are really good. So I'm glad they're thinking about this. This first one is Edward Flowers. He's in 10th grade, one of our band members here. And he asked, what financial advice would you have for someone if they wanted to start their own business?
Figure out, that's a good one. Figure out, is there somebody who is already doing what you're doing? So instead of you trying to start from like ground zero, try to figure it out, just there may be somebody who's doing exactly what you're trying to do. I would set up what's called an informational interview and just say, hey, I'm very interested in going down the same path. I would love to know more about it. That's how you start the conversation. So then you already you're given this gift of information that could really help you just skip a whole bunch of steps early, not skip steps, but you will avoid some hurdles and challenges because you will already know here's what you're going to run into because you've talked to somebody who's gone through it.
Big time. And the crazy thing is, a lot of times, some of these people are looking to sell the business.
Yes.
And I think people don't understand that either. So that could be another option to get into owning a business. I love this question. This is Levon Johnson. He's also in 10th grade, one of a very talented photographer. But he asked, so do you think I should simply just avoid credit cards at all costs?
No, you have to learn the credit system. Unfortunately, unfortunately, we don't like people don't just have millions of dollars sitting in a bank. If that were the case, maybe you would not need credit. But credit is a way that somebody can learn about your level of discipline and trustworthiness. It's just one of those things living in this country. I've got to know some information about you, and the way you manage your credit tells me a lot about your character. So please do not avoid it. You have to learn about it, use the credit system to your advantage. Even if you get into trouble, you can get out. Credit, you can mess it up and fix it forever in life. The goal is get to a point where you're managing it in a way that allows you to keep a good score. Even if you have some debt, you can still have a great credit score with some debts. It's just you have to play the game and you have to play it the right way.
Big time. Uh, I like this one. This is Christopher Maxwell. He's in 10th grade, and he asked, what would be the best way to decide which bank or credit union to use?
Uh, a couple things. You can ask your parents, guardians, family, friends where they bank, whether that's a bank or a credit union. You might have just a bank or credit union that's convenient in terms of where you live. So convenience usually matters. So I think if there's already established relationships through like family, they can speak on behalf of that financial institution, or it could be just a convenience. Hey, this place is right on my way to school or to work, and so might as well stop in and see what they can offer me. So it could be a convenience thing. It could be a family friend connection to that institution, but you just want to find out who can help offer you what you need.
Yeah, and another thing to look at too, I did this in the past. If you move out of town, if they
Mm-hmm.
have locations, because I've moved to
Agreed.
Clarksville, Tennessee, and I chose a bank that had locations in Jackson. So doing things like that, because let's say I was in an emergency and somebody in Jackson needed to put money in my account, they could have done that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something to look at as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I like this one. This is Shania Smith. She's in 10th grade, one of our volleyball players. And she asked, what's the hardest part about your job?
Dealing with people. The hardest part is this human nature of feeling like people feel like I'm trying to sell them on something. And the reality is I sell products or solutions as a part of my job, my career path. But I'm trying, I think for me, I've learned to not come as like the pushy sales guy. It's I want to expose you to this information and see what you're willing to do with it. And it's hard because of people's experience or lack thereof with people like me. So I'm dealing with people who have reasons for not wanting to work with me, who have never worked with a financial planner. So they just, I've heard, I've seen, have no actual experience, and then they just have this wall that I'm trying to bust through to help them. So it's even, if the sale needs to happen, then we've had hopefully enough conversation to learn about like why you need this solution. And it's just hard dealing with people and how you have to work on like pushing through some of their beliefs and feelings towards financial concepts, financial products, their own fears, their trauma, their anxiety, that is all these non-financial things or behaviors I have to deal with in an effort to help them. It is one of the toughest things to do every day, but I enjoy trying to solve these puzzles of why do they do this? Can I help? Let's figure it out together. But it's just challenging, very challenging.
Big time. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us again. But a couple of things before we go. First of all, your QR code there in the background is your a link to your book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If anybody would take a look, it's eight questions. It's good for, I'll say anybody. It's just a good introductory to how I think about and process financial planning. And it's just 8 questions that I have people to ask themselves, answer these questions truthfully, and then maybe we should have a conversation based on those responses. Or maybe you don't even reach out to somebody like me. You just sit with that information of, okay, I don't like my responses to this. But what am I willing to do to change that reality?
Big time. Now, again, and I know we mentioned this, and as we close, we talked about how important this is to at least be familiar with it, but why, especially for these young black kids, and we have some first generation Americans in our district as well, the children of immigrants that may not have had in their home country the same type of financial concepts. So why is it so important right now, 15, 16, 17 years old, to get your mind ready to be able to tackle this as you get out of high school?
It doesn't get easier. And that's why if you start early, you're almost in this safe space where you may or may not have a ton of responsibility. That's the best time to learn. You have time to make
Yep.
hiccups. I mean, it gives you just have time, which we can't rewind the clock. And so the earlier you learn of concepts, get comfortable, you learn about people's challenges and pitfalls you can avoid. It just helps to set up I won't say an easier life. It there'll be times where it will be easy only because you've had so much time of understanding and learning. Oh yeah, I learned that when I was 15. It was a great lesson. And you hear and then you hear the opposite, right? You hear oh, I wish I would have learned this when I was younger. So take advantage of your youth and soak up as much information as you can. And hopefully, well, actually, if you get the right information up front, you'll be fine in life. Like even with some hiccups, you'll be fine if you get this financial foundation built early or start early. You'll be a-okay in life, no matter what your career path will be.
Awesome. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us. I learn something every time you talk. Mr. Build Wealth, all the way out from Oakland, California. Jasper Smith, we thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Greg. I appreciate you.
I talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. Bye bye.